Brethren, please rise. Hello. And I request Brother Tim Boyd to give the universal invocation.
O hidden life, vibrant in every atom.
O hidden light, vibrant in every atom.
O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Thank you.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. Am I audible? Thank you. Have to be a little louder. Thank you. We meet again, and thank you very much for being with us today on a hot, sultry Chennai evening. Ideally, I should not stay longer between you, and we have I cannot say guest, he is our president, international president, Mr. Tim Boyd, because for two reasons. One is, he's a celebrity. Many of you and us know him. And the second is, this is not the first time I'm doing this job. Many of you must have heard, but our Madras Theosophical Federation has been very vibrant, and there is a lot of agility, and then a lot of new members have joined. So it is absolutely necessary that I introduce Brother Tim to all of you. So having said that, let me welcome you on behalf of the Madras Theosophical Federation and Adyar Lodge, who are jointly hosting this session. And thank you once again. And let me say a few words about Brother Tim. Tim was born in New York, and then he completed his schooling in New York, and then after that he moved to Chicago, where he completed his Bachelor of Arts and Public Affairs. It was an honors degree. Then immediately after that he plunged into social activities. He joined the Theosophical Society in 1974, and he was a co-founder of the Theosophical Inner Circle in Chicago, and he was very active. And then I will just give a glimpse of the kind of activities he has taken up. He was involved in claiming the lands, the vacant plots as we call it, it's called the lots there, and those he transformed them into wonderful organic gardens. That was the beginning of that kind of an activity. And then he was also involved in claiming the deteriorating housing, and many people who were at the mid-level and lower level of economic status could not make them. So some kind of an activity that sponsored, he made them into, renovated them at an affordable cost to those lower and middle class segments. So, and then not only that, there was a youth group, and then he motivated them. This group has actually involved in making them agile. Employment opportunities were given, educational opportunities were given. Entire that circle in that Chicago area, the business agility improved a lot. So like that, he has taken up several of those, and then there was it was only beginning. And in the year 1988, he became the national lecturer of the Theosophical Society in America, and then he has been touring ever since. In 2007, he became the national president of the Theosophical Order of Service. For those who have joined new, you might want to know the Theosophical Order of Service is an arm and a wing of the Theosophical Society, which tries to alleviate the pain and suffering caused to not only humanity, not only human beings, but also the animals, and then trying to restrict cruelty towards the animals as well. In 2011, he became national president of the Theosophical Society, the president of the Theosophical Society in America, TSA as they call it. In 2014, he became the international president of the Theosophical Society. And now I like to humbly submit that we as in Theosophical Society have a presence in more than 200 countries. And Tim, ever since he took over, has been touring and visiting all of these countries, sections and centers, bringing, completely transforming the way that we offer and spread theosophy. And you know how busy his schedules are. So having said that, I would like to say humbly, and we are with a great sense of gratitude, thank you for being with us in spite of his busy schedules. And I will not stay anymore. I think I should go. Thank you so much. I would like to invite Brother Tim to deliver his lecture on a very beautiful subject, truth and spirituality. Brother Tim.
Thank you, Vinay. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Vinay. He talks about all of this busy schedule, but he also knows that if he asks me to come, then this is where I find myself. So thank you to Vinay. Thank you to all the members of the Madras Federation for coming out and taking this opportunity for us to share maybe a few thoughts, hopefully something that might be of some use to us in our daily life. The more important aspect to me, of course, is the daily life as it relates to the inner life, what we might describe as the spiritual life. So I wanted to talk about a subject that I think spans both worlds. Important one, and it's also one that I like to go into because I think we're all familiar, and that helps. The subject I want to talk about is trust. Trust. Trust and the spiritual life, but let's get to the spiritual part of it in a minute. I think it's common knowledge to all of us that trust is a requirement for any relationship. Any relationship. If you go into business with someone, there better be trust there. If you go into a partnership in a home, couples better trust each other. Parents, children, it spreads across all of us. And it's a familiar thing to be aware of the need for this trust. So no matter who we are, no matter where we are, it's something that we find ourselves looking to have confidence in the character, in the honesty, in the strength of those with whom we relate. That's trust. I should say too, in the absence of that, that's where we find dysfunction. You know, there is no such thing as a healthy relationship that tries to exist in the absence of this trusting relationship. They dissipate. You know, it begins with some level of uncertainty. Uncertainty, when it's not satisfied, moves to doubt. Doubt has this way of going on to become distrust, even suspicion. And then we find ourselves locked in this mode of thought where we're, wondering about people's motives, trying to build walls to protect ourselves from the people we're trying and hoping we'll be able to deal with. It has this kind of degrading quality for any type of relationship. The fact of the matter is that as people living in the world, period, not the world today, but the world today, the world yesterday, anyone living in this world has had the experience of being wounded. All right. The request is for me to slow down because this American accent causes problems. All right. And then I would also say, it's not just my accent, acoustics. So if you don't hear it when it comes by you, listen for the echo. All right. So as human beings, everybody has had the experience of being hurt, being wounded from some break that occurs in trust. There are whole industries built up around this common experience. Bollywood is one, Hollywood is another. The music industry, you know, how many times can a song be written about how you broke my heart? But, you know, you listen tomorrow, there'll be a new one. But this type of experience that is shared, where somehow or another these relationships of trust break down. And it happens across all different levels of humanity. You have, of course, couples, that's the love song thing. Then you have children. Very often you have children who are wounded very early in life by selfish, irresponsible, immature parents. Parents who say one thing, do another. Parents who are supposed to set the example, but the example they set is the opposite of what it should be. I mean, those are experiences that many people have. And then when we get down to the level of what is really most important to us, which is to say, people come to temples, people come to churches with the hope that there they will be able to entrust their souls to the care of religious or spiritual leaders. And it is the universal experience that from time to time, there are people, there are priests, there are governments, there are whole categories of human affairs that have not earned our trust or have even violated our trust. That's the experience. So you have people who, for so many different reasons, you know, there's somebody who you know, and I've heard this story many times, where a person in the prime of life, a loved one, somehow is taken away by the experience of death. They die. It's unexpected. It's, from all appearances, you know, a good person is suddenly taken away, and all these other ones who are here doing wrong remain. I know people, and probably you do too, who will say that it has caused them to lose trust, lose faith in God, in the universe. Because how could such a thing happen if there is such a thing as a just and fair and loving divine being? So at this level, trust is one of the things that we look for. It's also one of the things that we suffer from. That's in our day-to-day living. It does happen for many of us that a point arises in our growth, in our unfoldment, where we start to look in a different direction. We could say we start to look more inward or upward. It's not spatial, of course, but the idea that there dawns on us at different points an awareness that there's something much more. There is an inner self. There is a spiritual life. And with that sort of awareness, it necessarily shifts our attention and hopefully shifts our activity and our sense of practice. So there is a little book that I find myself referring to frequently, particularly if you're new members, as Vinay was suggesting. A small book, At the Feet of the Master. You could read it on the bus home. It's that small. But it's one of these books. It talks about 4 qualifications, basically 4 qualities that we need to develop in order to really seriously embrace a spiritual life. It's very good. I mean, it's this age-old advice. I mean, the exact same 4 points appear in slightly different language in something from 2,500 years ago. The Viveka Chudamani of Shankara has these 4 points that are listed. But within that, there is this category. In the Viveka Chudamani, it's called the 6 jewels, the Shat Sampati, the 6 jewels of thought. In this little book, At the Feet of the Master, which I very much like because it was written by J. Krishnamurti, first book he ever wrote when he was 13 years old. And really, it wasn't so much his writing. He didn't take any credit for it. He said it was really a repetition and a reframing of the language that was told to him by his master. And so he just put it down in the words of a 13-year-old in the English language. And it made it very contemporary in many ways. But in these 6 jewels of thought, as these qualifications toward a genuine spiritual life, one of them that is listed is what is listed in this At the Feet of the Master as confidence. Confidence. In the language of the Viveka Chudamani, it's trust, faith. But one of the things that he says that I think it might be worth thinking about, he makes the point that unless there is perfect trust, there cannot be the perfect flow of love and of power. Well, then ask yourself if you're a believer or if you're actually trying to think and work your way through to what's behind this. So unless there is perfect trust, there cannot be the perfect flow of love and of power. Trust in what? Might be one question. Trust in what? Or trust in who? Might be a question that would be worth asking. In that little book, he anticipates the question, I believe, because next line or 2 that he writes, he says 2 things you must trust in. You must trust in your master, and you must trust in yourself. 2 things, which again would give the appearance of a conclusive and sort of final answer to the question. But probably the question that might arise to some is, it might cause more of a problem, this trusting in who is your master? There are many people in the spiritual life, in the religious world, who can point to a person. and can tell you, I'm a student of this master. It's particularly a point that is emphasized in the spiritual life of the Eastern world. The West, probably it was once too, but a lot of that's been lost. But I know in Tibetan Buddhism, you have, for instance, the very first lines of what's called the graded path to enlightenment, the Lam Rim, which says, following a kind master, foundation of all perfections, is the very root and basis of the path. And then it goes on to say, empower me to remember this and make every effort of taking its essence. So this guru devotion is, in this form of practice, is listed as primary. There must be some trust in the master. One of the things they tell you too, though, is that you want to be a little bit careful with that, because, just to say that this person is my teacher, is my master, they encourage you to study this person's life before you commit to such a thing. And they encourage you also to develop in your way and your manner of listening and of hearing. There's the expression that if you're with a teacher and you feel that teacher is a fool, then the teachings that you're getting, no matter what that teacher is, the quality of those teachings is the quality of the teachings of a foolish person. If you believe that that teacher that you're before is knowledgeable, then knowledge is what flows to you. If you believe that they are wise and you listen for wisdom, wisdom is what you inherit. If you believe that this is the Buddha that you are sitting before, and that that's what's speaking through this individual, then enlightenment and the teachings related to enlightenment are what are flowing toward you, dependent on how deeply you can hear. In the Christian tradition, they tell you that for the person who is illumined, that even the stones can preach sermons. That is not isolated to an individual person. Krishna, in the Gita, he talks about himself being the divine presence, being present, the inner ruler, immortal, present in the heart of all beings. When you can see that, then you can trust in that, when you can see it. So trust in the master. For members of the Theosophical Society, the master has a different nuance. Within this theosophical approach to the wisdom tradition, there's the idea that consciousness unfolds. And part of the process that we engage in as human beings is the unfoldment of consciousness. For most of us, certainly in the early parts of our development, it happens by accident. Our consciousness is exposed because we run into troubles and we try and figure a way out. But at a certain point, there is this aspect that's spoken of as self-induced and self-devised effort becomes the catalyst in our unfoldment. And so along that line, there is the idea that consciousness has this capacity. It's encased in the human being, more deeply encased in the animal, more deeply encased in the plant and the mineral, but there's also expansions beyond our state. This is the message of the religions of the world, that there are, in fact, great beings. And, in a hall like this, you look around the walls and you see Jesus depicted, you see Buddha depicted, Sri Krishna, all of the great masters from all of the world's traditions are surrounding us in image form as reminders of an essential fact. So there is this idea, trust in your master. But then I think perhaps a more difficult idea is the idea, trust in yourself. I think most of us have the normal belief that we know ourselves relatively well. Certainly we better know something about ourselves, otherwise we can't get up in the morning, can't drive the car. But if you ask someone, who are you? The answer that would be the normal answer would be, well, my job is this. I have a family, I have a daughter. I went to school here. I have certain beliefs. These things make me feel good. These things make me feel bad. I have ideas. That might be the level of description for most of us. And that's a good thing. But all that we're talking about there is what could be described as the personality. From this ageless wisdom tradition point of view, the personality is what appears in each life. It's the body, the emotions, and the thought. But that personality, that vehicle, is also accompanied in this journey that we describe as our life. We get stuck in our focus, rightly so. Because, what's more immediate than a pain in your finger or stepping on a rock? That'll get your attention. But this soul component, this higher self component, which enters into this world and accompanies this body throughout its stay here. When the body leaves, soul stays on, in this reincarnation point of view, awaiting its next opportunity. But we are accompanied by this soul. And when we start talking about the spiritual life, the point of it is to, at least in the beginning, as a minimum, stop ignoring it. In the Christian tradition, the soul is often described, or its influence is described as the still small voice. That there is this small voice within us that is continuously whispering. You could say it's whispering truths about the fact of our oneness, our interrelationship. Truths about the powers that are awaiting for us to wake up and become aware. Those sorts of things are continually talking within us, but in whispers. And the difficulty for us is, while there is a still small voice, there are also many big, loud voices clamoring for our attention. Anybody who has ever tried to engage in a spiritual path at the same time that they have a job, they have a family, they have bills to pay, will know about the effect of the loud voices of need and want. And so, how do we manage to hear this? But the fact of the matter is this, that even a small amount of attention turned in the direction of this accompanying soul has remarkable effects. A deepening attention leads to also a deepening sense of connection and a deepening experience of this spiritual component of our being. And so that's where we find ourselves. That once we have had the experience that there is something much more profound of great value, then it falls to us to try to figure out. I used to use an example of making a friend. How do you make a friend? And the idea is that in the world, we see people around us, and in those people, we see qualities that are attractive to us. And we see that, but then how do we befriend that person? And it's pretty basic. We've all done it. We've all made friends. Certainly, I hope so. But we see someone, and then what we do is we figure out a way to spend time around them. Let's do coffee. Let's play a game of basketball. Let's sit, let's talk. We figure out a way to spend time in their presence. And the way it works is that as we spend the time, as we give the attention, we start to become more and more familiar with, and again, this is the case of a person because it's familiar to us. We become more and more familiar with this person. You stay around a person long enough, they don't have to say anything. You can look at them and know that they're having a good day or a bad day, because you've developed that kind of familiarity. And if that familiarity ever goes beyond to take on the quality of genuine love for this person, well, that changes the game entirely. That's when, it's happened, I'm sure, for most of us, where you might be in another city and the one that you love is experiencing a moment of difficulty or pain or anguish. You're not even present, but something is going on with this loved one. And the phone might ring, or you might call and say, "You okay?" And you get the response that your intuitive mind has already been telling you. And that's the product of love. And so we're talking in this example, this is a friend that can sit across from you and have coffee, but we talk about the deepest friend, which in the example given by Krishnamurti is the master or the higher self, the soul. It's the same process of befriending the soul. We find time to be quiet. We find time to study in ways that lift our mind up closer to the altitude at which the soul functions. We find those ways, and we do it once, and we repeat it. Because at a certain point, that becomes the deepest satisfaction in our lives. And it's transformative. That's the experience. It becomes something that is transformative because now, this companion has someone that it can speak to, can speak through. And then this bond becomes much more profound. In this way, the work we tell ourselves we want to do in the world, the Theosophical Society has a statement of its mission. And, the first three words really say what its mission is: to serve humanity. The mission is to serve humanity, but then it talks about by cultivating a deepening understanding of the ageless wisdom, spiritual self-transformation, and the unity of all life. But to serve humanity is the catalyst for all of that. So we best serve humanity when we serve it from a position of some wisdom, when we serve it from a position of some connection to a source of genuine power. You know, there's a gentleman that wrote a book some years ago. He was a doctor, but he wrote, as I recall it, the title of the book was Power versus Force. You know, whether you agree with his way of looking at it, the idea being that there are forceful things that occur in the world. You know, violence would be an example of force. And there are these forceful things that occur. And many people find that they get results from violence, from abuse, from a lot of the things that have become the norm in our world today. So there's the level of force, you know, which always stems from some sort of fear. But then he talks about the dimension of power. And power is something that it's interesting the way this fellow does it, because he does it almost in a mathematical approach. So there are these exponential increases in the power of a thing. So violence, very, very low. But you get to these people who are truly powerful, who are empowered by this intimate connection with the deepest aspect of their being, who come into this world from time to time. They also have the capacity to attract others to them who resonate with this quality. But they come into this world and change it. You know, the Buddhas, the Jesuses, you have the Martin Luther Kings, you have the Nelson Mandela, you have all of these people who somehow or another manage to connect themselves with a genuine source of power. And in many cases, the response has been, you know, that this level of consciousness contrasts with the very base standard that has become the norm in this world today. And so very often, you know, it's been the experience, not just in our time, but always, that people who make a profound connection make friends but lose friends as well. And very often you find them crucified, you find them killed in various different ways. The body is killed, because from the perspective of the forceful mind, that's what it's about. But the consciousness, you know, it's been 2,500 years since Buddha said anything. You know, the last words he said were uttered 2,500 years ago. Around the world, millions of people resonate to the words that he gave and the life that he lived, empowered by this status of enlightenment. Jesus, Muhammad, Krishna, the same. So there's this capacity, to the extent that we ever do get to the point of first experiencing the touch of the soul and then trusting it. With that, then this perfect flow of love and perfect flow of power that was spoken of start to become a reality. And it's a reality that reveals itself, you know, as an individual. It reveals itself in your world. You know, where your thoughts, your smile, your touch becomes an actual healing force in the world. It's not just a possibility, it's a fact. But it's one that in many ways we have to earn. So, you know, much more could be said about that process, which, you know, is often just defined as practice. But this idea of trust in your master. And even if you don't feel that you are connected to a master, you trust in yourself, the two are identical. There's no separation. So with that trust, it's a transformative thing. There was a great man who lived in the United States right around the time that the Theosophical Society was being founded there, 1875, a man by the name of Ralph Waldo Emerson. And, you know, he said a lot of profound things and some very pithy things, but the idea about our words, our life, our actions as being empowered activities. What he said was, who you are speaks so loudly that I cannot hear a word that you're saying. The speech that echoes through you based on this deeper connection that is not just a possibility, it's a certainty for all of us. But it's a sooner certainty if we do something toward connecting ourselves. But that speech that utters through you speaks so loudly, the words are irrelevant. So anyway, just a few words, relatively slowly spoken, about trust. So we do with it what you can. But in any event, I do appreciate you coming out, and I do appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you being just like me. When Vinay calls, you come. So thank you, Vinay, and thank you all.
Let me tell you a small story. I don't want to disturb the kind of atmosphere he has created, but just to adding a few flowers to the ideal he created. There were, I think this story many of you must have heard, but just I thought it is apt to bring it to your notice. There was a place of worship where a few people had wanted to visit. There was a group that came, I'm sorry, and visit the place of worship, because in that town or village there were no rains for a long time. And then they had to go and pray for rains. And a couple of them, they had big bags and they kept the bags down. And one of them was asking, what's in the bag? They said, of course, they are umbrellas. Right? So they were very sure of the outcome. So that is the trust they had, not in God or anybody else, but in themselves. So thank you, Tim, for giving us such a wonderful insight, and the self-induced interest that you have triggered in us. Thanks for the message on the process of reconnecting ourselves with the higher nature. And that leads to the perfect flow of power and love. I cannot thank more for Tim being with us. He always delivers the best of the counsel and the best of the messages we always have. And the reason I was calling many of the newcomers is I didn't want this opportunity for them to miss. So myself joined with my secretary and other members of the team, we made sure that we make calls. And then thank you for all of you for responding to all of that. So now we have a small token of love that I would like to give. I would like to invite Maria to come and give away a small token of love to Brother Tim.
Oh. Oh, small. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And we have one more. Shawl.
We do it Indian way.
All right, around the shoulders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Brother Tim again, and thanks to all of you for being with us today. And we would like you to have being with us all the time that we invite. We have more programs next month coming.
Do you have any questions, Brian?
You want to take?
Fine with me. Few.
Yeah.
I'll
We
leave
have 10 minutes. Yeah. I think we can. Brother Tim is kind enough to take some questions. Please. I will do something.
Thank you. That's a nice one. That one's going home with me. Do you need your phone?
No, I got loud.
No, there is a. Yeah,
this
this
is
is.
for years, so. Yeah, sorry to pull you to this.
That's okay.
You were talking about trust.
Yes.
And from what I heard from you, and from, of course, layered by what we know generally as trust, to me, trust is a temporal phenomenon. And how do you link it with the spiritual experience? That's where I lost track.
Okay. I think very often one of the difficulties of talking about things that aren't seen necessarily is that you have to use the images, the language of what we do understand. So the way we understand trust, there is a certain unguarded confidence in a person that their integrity, their harmlessness, their beneficence, their good is something that we can depend on. So we're unguarded, we're open in that respect. When we can have that, the experience that describes for the personality, translated into something for the soul, I'm using the word soul, there's a lot of terms. Yeah. Then that's what is meant by trust. And again, in the language that Krishnamurti used, he used the word confidence. So we develop confidence from the repeated affirmation that we can, in fact, have confidence, trust, faith in a given thing. Is that it?
I got what you're trying to say.
Yes.
I got what you're trying to say.
Okay.
But yes, it's not a closed answer. It's an opening answer. It always.
Yeah. Okay. At least I have satisfied. Any other questions? You're not required to ask any, but if you have any, this might be the time. All right. Thank you.
Thank you all. The meeting is closed.